The Mid-Morning Show.
Oh, I love it.
On OX 105 FM.
Yes, it's the Mid-Morning Show with me, DJ G, on OX 105 FM. Now, my next guest, he's been here before. He's an old hat at this. But it's Councillor Stuart Craft from the Independent Working Class Association. How you doing, sir?
I'm all right, thank you.
Good to have you. You can't keep away, can you?
No, media junkie.
I know. Yeah. Now, we were due to have the BNP here with us to basically have a chat and have a debate, but unfortunately they pulled out, and there is a statement here from them. And before we start, I want you to listen to their statement.
Okay,
let me know what you think.
Rather than an interview with one of your presenters about BNP policy, I find today's show will be a debate between me and a member of the far left. Unfortunately, the far left don't do debate when it comes to the BNP. Instead, what we will see is an outpouring of hatred, poison and hostility that might make sensationalist radio, but will effectively drag me down to their level. My time, although ostensibly given freely, is precious to me, and I can find alternatives for a Monday morning that do not involve being shouted at, vilified and abused as part of a confrontational spectacle. So I am giving you as much notice as I possibly can to not disappoint or inconvenience your listeners.
So your thoughts?
That's interesting, isn't it? Predictable, though. Far left, he talks about the far left. He'd be quite happy to come in to debate with the far left. Yeah. He'd be quite happy to come in and debate with the Labour Party, the Tories or any of the others, as we've seen on TV. They asked for the interview, am I right?
As far as
they phoned you, they were begging for the interview, and they were quite happy to come on until they found that we were coming on. And that's because there's only one angle they're really vulnerable to, and that's the pro-working class angle.
Yeah.
You know, we are the genuine article, and they just couldn't argue with us. They know that we'd expose them for what they are, basically inherently an anti-working class organisation, and they bottled it. Shame on them.
Well, now the party that you're with, how did it actually has it come together? Has it actually started?
Well, basically, a number of groups came together, realising that the Labour Party, the Labour government that was probably going to come in, would be anti-working class. You know, they dropped any of the issues that would have made them pro-working class, and basically, New Labour was going to be as anti-working class, or even more so than the Tory government before them. And so a number of groups came together to decide to try and set up an organisation to tackle this, because there was a vacuum being created in working class areas by Labour abandoning our areas politically and physically, and this would be filled by other groups if we didn't get in there. One of those groups being the BNP.
Yeah.
In some areas, like the Islamists would fill that gap.
Yeah.
So we felt that a genuine working class organisation should be there to try and fill the vacuum.
Now, there should be some news reports saying that the government is completely out of touch with the man on the street.
Of course,
you know that I mean, from last week with all the petrol and stuff like that, somebody who should have known better, telling people to stock up on petrol and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, do you still feel that the government is out of touch?
Well, not just the government. All the mainstream parties are out of touch with the electorate. I mean, the BNP are just opportunists. They just look for what they feel is public opinion, and they jump in on that. You know, that's a party that was basically anti-Semitic. And as soon as they realised, and Griffin and some of the wiser heads realised that the anti-Jewish stick wasn't working, they switched like that to their erstwhile allies in the Islamists.
Yeah.
You know, there's a number of occasions. I mean, Griffin went to he went to visit Colonel Gaddafi to solicit funds. He was supporting the Ayatollah Khomeini's regime in Iran. You know, authoritarian. There's times when he's shared a platform with Abu Hamza. You know, quite happy because they saw that a lot of the Islamists played into that sort of anti-Jewish. You know, he was coming out with the, you know, obviously denying the Holocaust and this mad Jewish conspiracy to take over the world for world domination, and the Islamists played into that. They were quite happy bedfellows. But when he realised that it was the Islamists that was something that he could gather popular support around, he'd, like I said, he just switched like that to them. Basically, it doesn't matter what scapegoat they've got, as long as they've got a scapegoat. And as I said, inherently, their main enemy is the working class. And you see that wherever a fascist group across the world has ever taken power, the first ones into the concentration camps are the organised working class.
Okay. Now we have to be careful what we say about these guys, because they're not here to defend themselves. But
it's all but it's all on public record. You can look at you know he's filmed over in Libya when he went to get, and he's made statements in the National Front News, you know, in favour of the various black nationalist groups and that lot. He I think was in 1985. Right, he praised the Nation of Islam's Louis Farrakhan. Right, that was in Nationalist Today. He said, "White nationalists everywhere wish Farrakhan well, for we share a common struggle for the same ends: racial separation, and racial freedom." 2 years later, the NF News, National Front News, featured an interview with American black nationalist Osiris Akebala of the Pan-African International Movement under the headline "Top Blacks Back NF Plan." Akebala was pictured with an NF member reading a copy of the newspaper above an article stating, "White nationalists and black separatists should cooperate in our campaign against racist tyranny." And this, I mean, Griffin's kept up a friendship with that Akebala character. Like in 1998, when Griffin was in court on a charge of racial hatred, it was Akebala who flew over from America to defend his mate. You know, so they're all, you know, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Do you think the political parties in general, they're in it for themselves, or because like to the working person on the street, they see politicians up in Parliament doing their things, and you're hearing about them claiming expenses for this, claiming expenses for that. You know, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, most of them are in it for themselves. So this is why the BNP's done so well, because they just pointed out the obvious. A lot of what they say, probably 90% of what they say in public, is right, and any sensible person would agree with them. You know, on paper, they're more left-wing than the Labour Party, you know, supporting the NHS and things like that. And when they point to politicians being corrupt, either financially or morally, then they're correct. Anybody would see that. It's just that they've got an agenda that goes far from, is far from a progressive agenda. But if these politicians weren't at it, then they wouldn't give them the fodder to build their hatred off of.
Yeah. Now, the local elections are coming up. What's your part you're going to be playing?
Well, we've actually stood down. I mean, this might seem hard to get for some people to get their heads around, but we spent 10 years in the council chamber. At one stage, we had 3 of the 4 councillors here, and we have 4 councillors in the council chamber, and we've banged our head against the brick wall now for 10 years. We've made a few, a few steps forward, but generally speaking, we're outnumbered. We win all the arguments in the council chamber. I mean, these people, a lot of the times, they're away with the fairies. The councillors of the other parties, but it's no good winning the arguments if then they just all put their hands up and vote against you, you know. And you can spend so much time preparing for meetings only for everybody to turn, put their hands up and vote against you without even listening to your argument. That time is best placed back on our estates, doing well. We've always been here, but it was starting to drag us away from the real work on the ground. So for the moment, electoral politics is on the back burner for us, and we're more interested in doing stuff on the ground.
But don't you think, it's better to try and work within the system than trying to crack the nut from the outside?
Well, we have worked within, and got nowhere really. You know, most of the things that we built popular support for on the estate, like our campaigns against drug dealers, you know, and this was physical campaigns against drug dealers. We went out there, as I said before, and picketed drug dealers' houses, held big demonstrations. We made the national news, patrolled our areas and pushed the dealers. And this place, where we are at this very moment, was controlled by Yardie crack dealers. Right, this whole community centre, right? It was the IWCA campaign and all the decent people on the estate who got behind us that basically created the space that this radio station and other good, decent organisations could step into. So, yeah, but all those things, we never achieved anything really in the council chamber that, for the public to rally round. All the things we achieved was back on the streets. So here we are.
Well, my special guest, Stuart Craft, from the Oxford Independent Working Class Association.